AITA for excluding my mom from our baby shower celebration. Imagine this. You're preparing for what's supposed to be one of the happiest days of your life, surrounded by love and excitement, and then suddenly, everything spirals out of control because of your own mother. It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? But that's exactly what happened to me. I found myself in a tough situation when it came time to plan my wife and my baby shower. The question of whether to invite my mom loomed over me like a dark cloud, and the fallout from that decision turned my world upside down. Let me take you back to when my wife and I first discovered we were expecting. We were thrilled. The thought of bringing a new life into this world filled us with joy. We talked endlessly about our future as a family and all the love and happiness we hoped to share with our little one. Part of that excitement included planning a baby shower, which we envisioned as a beautiful celebration filled with family and friends. However, the reality of our family dynamics made things far more complicated than I had anticipated. You see, my relationship with my mom has always been rocky. There have been misunderstandings and hurt feelings over the years, and honestly it was hard to shake off the feeling that inviting her could lead to drama. So, as we planned the baby shower, I started to wonder if it would be best to exclude her. I didn't want to ruin the joy of the day with potential conflict, but I also didn't want to hurt her feelings. It felt like I was caught in a tug-of-war between wanting to celebrate my growing family and the fear of opening old wounds. Family dynamics can be incredibly complicated, especially during big life events like this one. Everyone has their own emotions, opinions, and expectations, and sometimes those can clash in unexpected ways. In this case, I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance the joy of welcoming a new baby while managing the delicate relationships in my life. As I contemplated this decision, I knew that whatever choice I made could have serious consequences. Not just for me, but for my wife and our future child as well. And that thought weighed heavily on my mind. So as I stood at this crossroads, I had to ask myself, what was more important, my mother's feelings or the peace of mind for my wife and me on this special day? That question haunted me as I moved forward with the plans for our baby shower, knowing that whatever I decided would ultimately shape not just that day, but also the dynamics of our family for years to come. My wife and I have been together for several years now, and we were both over the moon when we found out we were expecting our first child. From the moment we saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, it felt like our lives changed in the best possible way. We had dreamed about starting a family, and now that dream was becoming a reality. We spent countless nights talking about baby names, decorating the nursery, and all the adventures we wanted to have as a family. The excitement was palpable, and we couldn't wait to meet our little one. As we began to prepare for this new chapter in our lives, we decided to throw a baby shower. We envisioned it as a special day filled with love, laughter, and support from our closest friends and family. It was important to us to celebrate this milestone with the people we cared about most. We pictured a cozy gathering, surrounded by balloons and cake, with our loved ones showering us with gifts and advice. It felt like the perfect way to mark the beginning of our journey into parenthood. However, as we started making plans, I realized that the situation wasn't as simple as I had hoped. You see, my relationship with my mom has always been rocky. Growing up, there were misunderstandings that seemed to fester over the years. It wasn't that we didn't love each other. It was more complicated than that. My mom has always been strong-willed and opinionated, and while I admired her for that, it sometimes led to conflicts. There were moments when I felt like I could never meet her expectations, or that I was constantly disappointing her. I remember instances when I tried to share my achievements or life choices with her, only to have her respond with criticism or comparisons to others. Those conversations left me feeling hurt and frustrated. I longed for her support and understanding, but instead, it often felt like we were on opposing sides. The hurt feelings from those past arguments lingered in the air like an uninvited guest, always reminding me of the challenges we faced in our relationship. Now, with the baby shower approaching, I couldn't shake the feeling that inviting my mom could reignite those old tensions. I thought about the potential for drama and discomfort on what was supposed to be a joyful day. The last thing I wanted was to create an awkward atmosphere for my wife and our guests. I knew I had to make a decision, but the thought of leaving my mom out of such a significant moment made my heart heavy. I was torn between the desire to protect my wife and the hope of bridging the gap with my mother. As we prepared for the shower, I found myself lost in thought, grappling with the weight of my decision. Should I risk inviting my mom and possibly invite conflict into a day meant for celebration? Or should I prioritize the peace and happiness of my wife and our future child? It felt like a heavy burden to bear, and I knew that whatever choice I made would have consequences, not just for me, but for my entire family. As we dove deeper into the planning of the baby shower, I found myself weighing the pros and cons of inviting my mom. I wanted this day to be special for my wife and me, free from any unnecessary drama or tension. In the past, I had seen how my mom could turn even the simplest family gatherings into something complicated, filled with uncomfortable moments and strained conversations. The last thing I wanted was for that to happen during such an important celebration for us. So, as we started to finalize the guest list, I felt it was best for our peace of mind to not invite her. I justified it to myself by thinking about the positive atmosphere we wanted to create. I imagined our friends and family laughing, sharing stories, and helping us prepare for our baby's arrival. I could picture the joy on my wife's face as we opened gifts and played fun games together. I knew my mom could overshadow all of that with her strong opinions and tendency to criticize. It wasn't an easy decision. I knew that excluding her would hurt her feelings, and part of me wished it didn't have to come to this. But I kept reminding myself that this day was about us and our baby, and I needed to prioritize our family's happiness. I felt torn between my desire for peace and the love I had for my mother. In the end, my worries about potential conflict won out. When it came time to talk to my wife about my decision, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I knew we had to be on the same page, especially for something as significant as this. I approached her gently, wanting to gauge her thoughts. I took a deep breath and said, "Honey, I've been thinking about the baby shower, and I'm really leaning towards not inviting my mom." She paused for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "I understand where you're coming from," she replied, "but it's still your mom. Are you sure that's the best choice?" I could tell she was supportive, but I could also sense the conflict in her voice. She had a good relationship with her own parents, and I knew she understood the importance of family, even when things got complicated. "I just don't want her to make a scene or ruin the day," I explained, my voice tinged with frustration. "I love her, but you know how she can be. I want this day to be perfect for us, and I think leaving her out is the best way to achieve that." My wife nodded, but I could see she was struggling with my decision. "I get it, but maybe we could at least invite her and set some boundaries? We can tell her it's a special day for us and ask her to be on her best behavior." I thought about her suggestion, but it felt risky. What if my mom couldn't respect those boundaries? The more I considered it, the more anxious I became. I shook my head. "I really think it's better if she doesn't come at all. I just want to avoid drama and focus on the good times we're going to have." After a long conversation, my wife reluctantly agreed to support my decision. But as I felt a sense of relief, I also sensed an undercurrent of unease. I knew deep down that not inviting my mom would have consequences. Little did I know, this decision would lead to a family storm that would test the very foundations of our relationships. As the days passed, I tried to focus on the excitement of the upcoming shower. We put together decorations, planned games, and selected the perfect cake. I felt the anticipation building as I thought about how wonderful it would be to celebrate this new chapter in our lives. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing. I kept thinking about how my mom would react when she found out. The thought of her disappointment lingered like a shadow, reminding me that my choice could lead to fallout I hadn't even begun to imagine. The moment my mom found out she wasn't invited to the baby shower, it was as if a volcano erupted. I'll never forget the look on her face when she called me. The anger in her voice was palpable, and I could hear her frustration echoing through the phone. "How could you do this to me?" she shouted, her words sharp and filled with hurt. "I'm your mother. I thought we were family." In that moment, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. I knew this reaction was a possibility, but hearing her anger was like a punch to the gut. I tried to explain my reasons, but it felt like I was talking to a wall. She wouldn't listen to anything I said. All she could focus on was how she felt betrayed and disrespected. "You're choosing your wife over your own mother?" she screamed, and I could tell she was genuinely upset. Her words stung, and I felt the weight of her disappointment crashing down on me. After that phone call, things only got worse. My mom wasn't one to sit quietly and accept her fate. No, she reached out to other family members to vent her frustrations. Suddenly, it felt like I was in a war zone. My mom was rallying the troops, telling everyone how I had excluded her from such a significant moment in my life. Family members started calling me, wanting to hear my side of the story. Some were sympathetic, but others seemed to side with my mom, believing I had been unfair. I felt like I was caught in the middle of a family feud, and it was exhausting. The conversations with my relatives varied. Some of them urged me to reconsider and reach out to my mom, suggesting that I should apologize for the hurt I caused. "She's your mother," one aunt said gently. "You need to think about family." Others expressed support for my decision, but didn't fully understand why I felt the need to exclude her. They hadn't lived through the moments that had led to my decision, and I realized how hard it was to explain my perspective to people who hadn't witnessed the family dynamics firsthand. As this drama unfolded, I felt guilt creeping in. I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I had made the wrong choice. Questions flooded my mind, and I started to wonder if I had been too harsh. Was I truly protecting my family, or was I simply running away from a difficult relationship? Every time I thought about my mom, a pang of sadness washed over me. It hurt to see our family torn apart over a decision I believed was right. I loved my wife, and I wanted our baby shower to be a joyful occasion, but I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. The emotional toll the situation took on me was overwhelming. I would lie awake at night, replaying the events in my mind, doubting my choices. My heart ached as I thought about my mom, alone and upset. I felt torn between my love for my wife and my obligation to my mother. I wanted to make everyone happy, but it seemed impossible. The stress of it all left me drained. I couldn't eat properly, and the anticipation of the baby shower began to feel like a burden rather than a celebration. At the same time, I noticed the impact this conflict was having on my relationship with my wife. She could sense my turmoil, and while she was supportive of my decision, I could tell she felt uncomfortable with the whole situation. We had planned this beautiful day together, but now it felt overshadowed by family drama. I worried that this would put a strain on our marriage, which was the last thing I wanted. We were supposed to be focusing on our future and the arrival of our baby, not dealing with family disputes. As the days passed, I kept hoping things would calm down, but the tension only seemed to grow. I realized I had unintentionally created a rift in my family, and I couldn't help but feel responsible for it. My mom's reaction had not only hurt her, but also put a wedge between me and other family members. I couldn't escape the feeling that I had sparked a wildfire that I couldn't control. All I wanted was to celebrate this new chapter in our lives, but instead, I was left navigating the chaos that had erupted from my decision to exclude my mom from our baby shower. The day of the baby shower finally arrived, and I could hardly believe it was actually happening. My wife and I had spent countless hours planning every little detail, and now it was time to see our vision come to life. As I walked into the venue, the decorations filled the space with warmth and joy. There were balloons and soft pastels, a beautifully decorated table overflowing with delicious food, and our closest friends and family gathered, excited to celebrate this new chapter in our lives. But even as I took in all the beauty around me, a heavy weight sat in my chest. I looked at my wife, her smile bright and genuine as she greeted our guests, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. This was supposed to be a day filled with happiness, yet the absence of my mom lingered like a shadow. I couldn't shake the feeling that my decision had come with a cost, and every laugh and cheer from our friends reminded me of what I had chosen to exclude. It felt bittersweet, like enjoying a delicious dessert while knowing you had to leave behind something important. Throughout the shower, I tried to put on a brave face and immerse myself in the joy around me. I chatted with friends, shared stories, and celebrated the little gifts we received for our baby. But in the back of my mind, my mom's voice echoed. I wondered if she was sitting alone at home, hurt and upset. I thought about how she would have reacted to the decorations, the games we played, and the laughter that filled the room. My heart ached at the thought of her missing out on these special moments that were supposed to be about family. During the shower, I found myself in conversations with friends and family, and it was interesting to see how opinions varied. Some friends were incredibly supportive of my decision. They understood the complexities of my relationship with my mom and assured me that I had the right to protect my peace. "You did what you had to do for your family," one friend said, and I felt a glimmer of relief. It was comforting to know that some people recognized the struggle I was facing and empathized with my choice. However, not everyone felt the same way. A few friends questioned my decision, pointing out how important it is to include family during such milestones. "She's your mother, and family is supposed to stick together," another friend told me. Hearing these words made me uncomfortable, and I could feel my heart sink. Their concerns echoed my own doubts, and I couldn't help but feel like I was stuck between two worlds. I wanted to protect my family and ensure our happiness, but at what cost? As the day went on, I tried to focus on the positives. The joy of being surrounded by loved ones and the excitement of welcoming our baby filled the air, but my mind kept drifting back to my mom. I wondered if she would ever understand my decision, or if it would create a permanent rift between us. It made me realize that family dynamics are incredibly complex, and what seems like a simple choice can spiral into something much deeper and more painful. By the end of the shower, as the last guests began to leave and my wife and I cleaned up, I reflected on everything that had happened. This whole experience taught me a lot about boundaries and the complexities of family relationships. I learned that it's okay to prioritize your own family's peace, even if it means making tough choices that others may not agree with. I understood that setting boundaries isn't always easy, especially when it involves someone as significant as a parent. However, I also realized that relationships are fragile. The decisions we make can have lasting effects, and while I felt justified in my choice, the guilt I carried reminded me of the emotional toll it could take on my family. As my wife and I packed up the last of the decorations, I knew I had to find a way to address the rift with my mom. Maybe it would take time, but I hoped that eventually we could come together to heal. This experience was a lesson in navigating the delicate balance between love, boundaries, and the inevitable complications that arise within family dynamics. As I sit here reflecting on everything that has happened, I realize just how complicated family dynamics can be. In the end, I had to choose what felt right for my family, even if it meant disappointing my mom. This whole experience has been a roller coaster of emotions, filled with love, joy, guilt, and conflict. My wife and I were so excited about welcoming our first child, and we wanted our baby shower to be a joyful celebration with the people who support us. But that also meant facing the difficult reality of my relationship with my mom. I had hoped that inviting her would lead to a happy day filled with family love. Instead, I found myself wrestling with the idea that sometimes protecting my own family's peace means making hard choices. The decision to exclude my mom was not made lightly. I spent many sleepless nights thinking about it. I wanted to avoid any drama that could overshadow this special moment for us. But I also knew that not having her there would hurt. The emotional toll it took on me was heavy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had let her down. This situation made me realize how important it is to establish boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable. Family is supposed to be a support system, but when relationships are strained, those lines can blur. It's a delicate balance between honoring your own needs and trying to keep peace in the family. I still find myself thinking about what could have been different. Would the shower have been more enjoyable if my mom had been there? Or would it have created tension that would have ruined the day? These questions linger in my mind, reminding me of the complexities of life. So now I turn to you, the audience. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have invited your mom, even knowing the potential fallout? I know everyone's family dynamics are different, and each situation comes with its own unique challenges. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever faced a similar situation? How did you navigate those difficult choices?